mysterious man. The localized Scream Man thought he was a great scientist looking for insects. Everybody seems to think he's a millionaire. Their allegiance and devotion to the mysterious man is total. To them, he is my Commodore. The man is L. Ron Hubbard, charmer, science fiction writer and showman, the creator of Scientology and the man who's pushing it into its new, more militant phase. He now requires that his crew must have training in judo and weaponry, and that they must be ethically beyond reproach, tough, formidable, and effective. To them, he's a savior. One of them wrote, "That which I have really found is the nearness to the greatness which is Ron, our founder. To me, above all, my Commodore."
Ask you, have you read any books on Dianetics or Scientology?
I've been reading little else over the last few days. I must confess, I'm not a student.
But you haven't read Dianetics or any books on Scientology.
You're absolutely
okay. Fine, then that's why you would make a comment like that. I mean,
the biographies of L. Ron Hubbard portray him as this legendary man in all stages of his life, from a youthful prodigy to a teenage adventurer to a brave war hero, and then a long-suffering messiah who gave his life for all. Now, what's crazy is when you learn the truth about him, almost every single fact in his biographies is a lie.
So, but anyway, there is this mind, and then there's a body. So actually, a spirit is wearing a mind, and it's wearing a body. And when you audit or process a person, he then is able to confront this mind, which hitherto has been totally invisible to him. And that is his mind. When you have discovered that man was a spirit, you, of course, have invaded the field of religion, and you are religious. But remember this, that religion has come uniformly from philosophy. Philosophy is senior to religion.
Reporting of himself and his story states that he was this amazing military person who won all these awards and medals, and he really didn't at all. He actually said that he received 21 war medals, when in reality he only received 4 medals that were routinely given to everyone that was part of the war. So at this time in his life, he actually did have 2 children and a wife. He was discharged from the Navy, and you'd think that he would head home to them. Nah. This is when he decided to head directly for a house in Pasadena, California, where there was supposed to be a large group of people, including this guy named Jack Parsons, who was the leader of a supernatural religious organization called the Ordo Templis Orientis. So he actually ended up meeting this guy Jack, and the two of them ended up collabing, an old-fashioned collab, on something that they called the Babylon Working, which was this like magic sexual ritual intended to summon the incarnation of Babylon, the supreme Thelemite goddess. So that was an interesting period. Also in the late 1940s, he ended up practicing as a hypnotist, and he was also working in Hollywood posing as a Swami, which is a Hindu religious teacher. And according to Scientology now, L. Ron Hubbard's work doing this and his experience with hypnosis led him to create something called Dianetics.
Scientology is a set of beliefs and practices and an associated movement invented by American author L. Ron Hubbard. Hubbard initially developed Dianetics, which is a set of ideas he represented as a form of therapy. In 1950, Hubbard established the Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation, which he used to promote his Dianetics therapy. Also in the same year, Hubbard published the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. This is the book that launched the Scientology movement. even though he lost the rights to his book 2 years later. Yes, you heard that correctly. Oh, and in 1950, his Hubbard Dianetics Research Foundation declared bankruptcy. He was off to a great start. You are most likely wondering how, after all that, L. Ron Hubbard somehow went on to create the Church of Scientology, and I was wondering the same. However, in 1951, he recharacterized Dianetics as a religion and renamed it Scientology. He retained the terminology, doctrines, and the practice of auditing. What is auditing? A process whereby someone known as an auditor, of course, takes another individual through times in their current lives with the purpose of ridding the individual of negative influences and behavior. An individual being audited is known as PC or pre-clear. That will make more sense soon. Anyway, within a year, Hubbard regained the rights to Dianetics and retained both subjects under the umbrella of Scientology. Scientology teaches that people are immortal spiritual beings who have forgotten their true nature. Scientology's central mythology developed around the origin notion of the thetan. In Scientology, the thetan is the individual expression of theta, described by Neusner as the cosmic source and life force. The thetan is the true human identity, rendering humans as pure spirit and godlike. The religion's mythology holds the belief that in the primordial past, Thetans applied their creative abilities to form the physical universe. Contrary to the biblical narrative that shows that the universe was created by a divine sole creator, Scientology holds that the universe was created by Theta in the form of individualized expressions. And yes, I'm sure I'm butchering these names, I know, but I'm sorry. The story of Xenu is part of Scientologists' teachings about extraterrestrial civilizations and alien interventions in earthly events, collectively described as space opera by Hubbard. Its method of spiritual rehabilitation is a type of counseling known as auditing. That creepy practice we discussed in the last part of this video. Study materials and auditing courses are made available to members in return for specified donations. Scientology is legally recognized as a tax-exempt religion in the United States, and the Church of Scientology emphasizes this as proof that it is a bona fide religion. Scientology describes itself as the study and handling of the spirit in a relationship to itself, others, and all of life. According to the Encyclopedia of American Religions, it is concerned with the isolation, description, handling, and rehabilitation of the human spirit. One purpose of Scientology, as stated by the Church of Scientology, is to become certain of one's spiritual existence and one's relationship to God or the Supreme Being. One of the major tenets of Scientology is that a human is an immortal alien spiritual being termed a thetan that is presently trapped on planet Earth in a physical meat body. Yes, you heard that right. Hubbard described these thetans in the space opera Cosmogony. The thetan has had innumerable past lives, and it is accepted in Scientology that lives preceding the thetan's arrival on Earth lived in extraterrestrial cultures. Descriptions of space opera incidents are seen as true events by Scientologists. The Church claims that they provide methods by which a person can achieve greater spiritual awareness. Within Scientology, progression from level to level is often called the bridge to total freedom. Yeah, they have levels like MLMs do. Scientologists progress from pre-clear to clear and ultimately operating thetan.
Now we have here just the chart itself, which has been published, and it goes from the bottom up. It is read from the bottom up. And it even has an elastic bottom. Some people are more bottom than others. Some people start from zero. Some people start from zero, you see. Now, you go up along the line here, you'll find out we've got a zero. Well, now, if some people start from zero, where do others start from? Well, some people aren't up to zero yet, and that's for sure. Now, we see along the bottom here the first negative 34 states. And the first of those states that is listed here is unexistence. Unexistence. But there are states way below unexistence. It's just that people in those states aren't likely to ever be able to read this chart, so we never bothered to put them on. Now you find that as an individual goes up here, a very funny thing about this chart, a person, for instance, at one of these lines, let us say unexistence, when he improves, becomes aware of disconnection. Now, disconnection would be an improvement over no existence at all. He gets the idea that he's disconnected from things. He becomes alert to the fact, he becomes aware of the fact that in life he's actually disconnected. You see, from not existing at all, he becomes aware of the fact that he is at least disconnected from things. You get the idea? So as we go up, a person at any one of these levels, no matter where they are on the chart, is most likely to become aware of the next exact level up. And this is levels and a map of what the individual can become aware of. So if you ask somebody who is down here in a state of fixity, fixed, there he is, stuck, he knows that. If we ask this individual to suddenly envision the idea of power, why? Me? Oh, no, somebody's wrong, see? But you could tell this individual that, oddly enough, it may not sound right in this particular, but when a person is in total fixity, the first thing he's aware of is glee. On a harmonic on that, he's most aware of ridicule. Well, you can get the individual, he's stuck in the mud, totally stuck in the mud, and somebody comes along and laughs at him. Well, he hasn't paid any attention to anybody so far until somebody laughed at him. Now he's aware of it. This is a little guide here that's quite interesting if you used it in life, if you located what the individual is aware of. But don't make this mistake. This isn't what the individual is dramatizing. This isn't the individual's behavior. This is what he himself, as a being, is aware of. That's what he's aware of. So he's aware of the fact he's introverted. Now, you can be aware of the fact he's introverted, but that doesn't make him aware of it, even when you tell him out of the best of intentions. You see, you can be aware of the fact he's introverted. Well, that doesn't put him at introversion. It's is he aware of it? That's what puts him at introversion. You'll find a lot of human beings have to come up a long way to become aware of the fact they're introverted. That's actually a pretty high condition for Homo sapiens. And after he's aware of, if he's become aware of the fact that he's introverted, he can then, and only then, become aware of the fact that he's numb. He's numb. He doesn't get any reaction from life. So as he goes up the scale here, he becomes aware in each particular time and turn with each stage above that. Now, oddly enough, a very high state is the state of need of change. An individual who knows that he needs change in his life is few and far between. Most Homo sapiens wonder how they can endure the thing they can't change. Now, the one thing that Scientology can do, and the one thing it does do, is change conditions. And if there's anything that Scientology can do at all, it will be change of conditions. Now, used properly, it always improves the conditions. If you goof it up, it can worsen conditions. You see, that's why we insist it's used right. So, the need of change at -4 gives you the point where the individual can become a Scientologist. He's aware of the need of change. Individuals who are below that point have to be coddled and nursed and herded and handled with the greatest care. But when they get up to the point where they recognize the world is in need of change, they are a Scientologist or capable of being one. Got it? Now they go up from -4 here, the need of change. And the next thing they do after they become aware of the need of change is demand improvement. And after a demand of improvement, they can see that there's some hope. They can become aware of the fact that there is some hope. And when they're aware of hope, they can become aware of the fact that there's help and that they can help. Now, this individual then is aware of help. He isn't necessarily pleading for it. He's aware of it. And that's a 6-way proposition. You can help others, and others can help others, and others can help you, and, you know, it's a mutual ground sort of a situation. And you have an individual who is unwilling to audit others or unwilling to help others to the degree that he is helped and so forth. He isn't really up to that on the tone scale. You've got to audit me. All right, I'll gladly audit you, you audit me. Oh, no, I haven't got the time. You got the idea? Now, above that, the individual begins to have recognition. He begins to see where he is. His orientation becomes better. He begins to recognize, and the first thing he gets an inkling of is himself. He begins to recognize himself. And he begins to recognize others for what they are and the potentials of others. Now, he gets up to there, and he gets up to a point where he can communicate. Pretty high level. And above that, he gets up to a point of being able to perceive. And above perception, of course, in order to be oriented, you have to be able to perceive. You can't find out where you are unless you can perceive where you are. Obvious. And so you get oriented, and after orientation comes understanding, and after understanding becomes enlightenment. Believe me, enlightenment never takes place before understanding. Lots of people think it can, and modern universities are totally dedicated to this. Now, up above that, an individual again gets a return of his energy, he gets an adjustment, he becomes aware of the fact of a body and that he is not a body. He gets into a point where he can predict, he goes into action, he himself is capable of production, he knows a result when he sees one, he can review the things of his life and take care of it, he regains his ability, his purposes, his own purposes start coming out straight. For the first time, he didn't ever realize he was really running on other people's purposes, and he gets a clearing of his entire past and other purposes and a realization of himself, and then he goes into a state where he is capable of power. But by the time he gets into that state, he's of course totally responsible and can be trusted with it. Otherwise he won't make it. Now, when we look all this over, we find ourselves one column on this chart. We have paralleled it by various techniques and activities which approximate these and bring about these conditions as they go up. And an individual moving up this chart, one after the other, does make these various steps and arrive finally at the top. There are various states called the state of release. There are 4 stages of release up to here. 4 stages of release up to level 5. Different states of condition, and then there is a state of, another state of release is actually in this point, which is achieved, but that state we call clear. Now, clear is followed by the state of operating fate. In other words, an individual could operate totally independently of his body, whether he had one or didn't have one. He's now himself. He's not dependent on the universe around him. Now, that is what that chart describes, and that is a guide from the individual, for the individual from the point where he first becomes dimly aware of a Scientologist or Scientology, and how he can move, shows him how he can move and through what he should move on up through in order to make it. A lot of people are making it now that this chart has come into existence, and we're having no real difficulty getting people to attain these various conditions. You could probably audit somebody exclusively or practice on them exclusively on the basis of just the little changes I've just described to you in detail.
Scientologists are taught that a series of events or incidents incurred before life on Earth. Scientologists also believe that humans have hidden abilities which can be unlocked, like magic powers. I want to be like Superman. Hubbard's image and writings are ubiquitous in Scientology churches. Churches built after Hubbard's death include a corporate-style office set aside for Hubbard's reincarnation, with a plaque on the desk bearing his name and a pad of paper with a pen for him to continue writing novels in the afterlife. A large bust of Hubbard is placed in the chapel for Sunday services, and most sermons reference him and his writings. The highest authority in the Church of Scientology is the Religious Technology Center, RTC. The RTC claims to only be the holder of Scientology and Dianetics trademarks, but it is in fact the main Scientology executive organization. Don't let them fool you. RTC Chairman David Miscavige is widely seen as the effective head of Scientology. CSI provides a visible point of unity and guides the individual churches, especially in the area of applying Hubbard's teaching and technology to a uniform fashion. At a local level, every church is a separate corporate entity set up as a licensed franchise and has its own board of directors and executives. Scientology organizations and missions exist in many communities around the world. Scientologists call their larger centers orgs, short for organizations. Of course, they're very original with their names, aren't they? The major Scientology organization of a region is known as a central org. The legal address of the Church of Scientology International is in Los Angeles, California, 6331 Hollywood Boulevard in the Hollywood Guarantee Building. The Church of Scientology also has several major headquarters. Some of the headquarters, since I cannot go through all of them because this video would be 10 hours long, include St. Hill, West Sussex, England; Flagland Base, Clearwater, Florida, United States; Gold Base, Riverside County, California; Trementina Base; Free Winds, Ideal Orgs. However, let's take a moment to discuss the most interesting base to all of us. The base in Hollywood, California, United States. Los Angeles, California has the largest concentration of Scientologists and Scientology-related organizations in the world, with the church's most visible presence being in the Hollywood district of the city. The organization owns a former hospital on Fountain Avenue, which houses Scientology's West Coast headquarters, the Pacific Area Command Base, often referred to as PAC Base or Big Blue, after its blue paint job. Like I said, they're totally original here. Adjacent buildings include headquarters of several internal Scientology divisions, including the American St. Hill Organization, the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles, and the Church of Scientology of Los Angeles. All these organizations are integrated within the corporation Church of Scientology, Western United States. The Church of Scientology even successfully campaigned to have the city of Los Angeles rename one block of a street running through this complex L. Ron Hubbard Way. The street has been paved brick. It is dark and cold like his heart was. Scientology's Celebrity Center International is located on Franklin Avenue, while the Association for Better Living and Education, Author Services, and the official headquarters of the Church of Scientology International in the Hollywood Guarantee Building are all located on Hollywood Boulevard. The ground floor of the Guarantee Building also features the L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition, a museum detailing his life that is open to the general public. The Celebrity Center was acquired by the church and the shoudl in 1973, built to accommodate members in the arts, sports, and government. Another museum in the area is the Psychiatry and Industry of Death, located on Sunset Boulevard, which is operated by the church-affiliated organization Citizens Commission on Human Rights. Let's talk about Scientology and human rights for a moment. In Anderson, from 2.0 down on the tone scale, should not have, in any thinking society, any civil rights of any kind, because by abusing those rights, he brings into being arduous and strenuous laws which are oppressive to those who need no such restraints. L. Ron Hubbard, Science of Survival, 1989 edition, page 145. Some key activities of the Church of Scientology carry risks for members, and the deaths of some Scientologists have brought attention to the church both due to the circumstances of their demises and their relationship with Scientology possibly being a factor. In 1995, Lisa McPherson was involved in a minor automobile accident while driving on a Clearwater, Florida street. Following the collision, she exited her vehicle, stripped naked, and showed further signs of mental instability, as noted by a nearby ambulance crew that subsequently transported her to a nearby hospital. Hospital staff decided that she had not been injured in the accident, but recommended keeping her overnight for observation. Following intervention by fellow Scientologists, of course, McPherson refused psychiatric observation or admission at the hospital and checked herself out against medical advice after a short evaluation. She was taken to the Fort Harrison Hotel, a Scientology retreat, to receive a church-sanctioned treatment called introspective rundown. She had previously received the introspective rundown in June of that year. She was locked in a room for 17 days where she died. Her appearance after her death was that of someone who had been denied water and food for quite some time, being both underweight and severely dehydrated. Additionally, her skin was covered with over 100 insect bites, presumably from cockroaches. The state of Florida pursued criminal charges against the church. The church has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and now makes members sign a waiver before introspection rundown, specifically stating that they, or anyone on their behalf, will not bring any legal action against the organization over injury or death. Isn't that lovely? These charges attracted press coverage and sparked lawsuits. 8 years later, Ellie Perkins, another adherent to Scientology's beliefs regarding psychiatry, was stabbed to death by her mentally disturbed son. Though Ellie Perkins' son had begun to show symptoms of schizophrenia as early as 2001, the Perkins family chose not to seek psychiatric help for him and opted instead for alternative remedies sanctioned by Scientology. The death of Ellie Perkins at the hands of a disturbed family member, one whose disease could have been treated by methods and medications banned by Scientology, again raised questions in the media about the church's methods. In addition, the church has been implicated in kidnapping members who have recently left the church. In 2007, Martine Boublil was kidnapped and held for several weeks against her will in Sardinia by 4 Scientologists. She was found on January 22, 2008, clothed only in a shirt. The room she was imprisoned in contained refuse and an insect-infested mattress. On Friday, March 28, 2008, Kaja Bordovich Ballo, daughter of Olav Gunnar Ballo, Norwegian parliament member and vice president of the Norwegian Aldesting, took a Church of Scientology personality test while studying in Nice. Her friends and co-inhabitants claimed she was in good spirits and showed no signs of a mental breakdown, but the report from the Church of Scientology said she was depressed, irresponsible, hypercritical, and lacking in harmony. A few hours later, she committed suicide by jumping from her balcony at her dorm room, leaving a note telling her family she was sorry for not being good for anything. The incident has brought forward heavy criticism against the Church of Scientology from friends, family, and prominent Norwegian politicians. Inga Mart Thorkildsen, parliament member, went as far as to say, "Everything points to the Scientology cult having played a direct role in making Kaja choose to take her own life." Scientology is a major international organization. In 2001, the American Religious Identification Survey, ARIS, reported that there were 55,000 adults in the United States who consider themselves Scientologists. A 2008 survey of American religious affiliations by the U.S. Census Bureau estimated there to be 25,000 Americans identifying as Scientologists. The 2001 United Kingdom census contained a voluntary question on religion, to which approximately 48 million chose to respond. Of those living in England and Wales who responded, a total of 1,781 said they were Scientologists. In 2011, Statistics Canada, the national census agency, reported a total of 1,745 Scientologists nationwide, up from 1,525 in 2001 and 1,220 in 1991. In 2011, support for Scientology in Switzerland was said to have experienced a steady decline from 3,000 registered members in 1990 to 1,000 members, and the organization was said to be facing extinction in the country. A Church of Scientology spokeswoman rejected the figures, insisting that the organization had 5,000 passive and active members in Switzerland. In 2011, the Scientology Association of Finland had approximately 120 members. As you can see, the numbers are all over the place. However, when you consider what Scientology is, and we'll be getting to that in a moment, a little deeper, the numbers are still way too high. L. Ron Hubbard appointed Mary Sue Hubbard to take control of certain aspects of legal protection for the Church of Scientology in 1968, and the Office of the Guardian was created with its head office situated at St. Hill Manor. Under the Guardian's office, later renamed the Office of Special Affairs, or OSA, Church members and contracted staff from Bureau 1 later organized and committed one of the largest penetrations of United States federal agencies ever perpetrated by an organization not affiliated with a foreign government. That is, one such as the KGB. This operation was named Operation Snow White by Hubbard. This was no Disney story. In the trial which followed the discovery of these activities, the prosecution described their actions as such. The crime committed by these defendants is of a breadth and scope previously unheard of. No building, office, desk or file was safe from their snooping and prying. No individual or organization was free from their despicable conspiratorial minds. The tools of their trade were miniature transmitters, lockpicks, secret codes, forged credentials, and any other device they found necessary to carry out their conspiratorial schemes. The church has also, in the past, made use of aggressive tactics in addressing those it sees as trying to suppress them, known as suppressive persons, SPs. First outlined by Hubbard as part of a policy called Fair Game. It was under this policy that Paulette Cooper was targeted for having authored The Scandal of Scientology, a 1970 expose book about the church and its founder. This action was known as Operation Freakout.
He really does think he works for the special ops, huh?
Using blank paper known to have been handled by Cooper, Scientologists forged bomb threats in her name. When fingerprints on them matched hers, the Justice Department began prosecution, which could have sent Cooper to prison for a lengthy term. The church's plan was discovered at the same time as its Operation Snow White actions were revealed. All charges against Cooper were dismissed, though she had spent more than $20,000 on legal fees for her defense. On January 22, 2013, attorneys for the organization, as well as some of its members, reacted toward the CNN News Group for its airing of a story covering the release of a book published by a former member entitled Going Clear, published earlier the same year. CNN News Group then chose to publish the reactionary correspondence with confidential information redacted on its website. Of these activities, the current church laments. How long a time is the church going to have to continue to pay the price for what the Guardian office did? Unfortunately, the church continues to be confronted with it. And the ironic thing is that the people being confronted with it are the people who wiped it out. And to the church, that's a very frustrating thing. According to a 1990 Los Angeles Times article, in the 1980s, the Los Angeles branch largely switched from using church members in harassment campaigns to using private investigators, including former and current Los Angeles police officers. The reason seemed to be that this gave the church a layer of protection. The Scientology organization has continued to aggressively target people it deemed suppressive. In 1998, regarding its announcement that it had hired a private investigator to look into the background of a Boston Herald writer who had written a series on the church, Robert W. Thornburg, Death of Marsh Chapel at Boston University, said, "No one I know goes so far as to hire outsiders to harass or try to get intimidating data on critics. Scientology is the only crowd that does that." It has apparently continued as recently as 2010. In 2007, when BBC journalist John Sweeney was making Scientology and Me, an investigative report about the church, and was the subject of harassment. In LA, the moment our hire car left the airport, we realized we were being followed by 2 cars. In our hotel, a weird stranger spent every breakfast listening to us. Sweeney subsequently made a follow-up documentary, The Secrets of Scientology, in 2010, during which he was followed and filmed on multiple occasions, and one of his interviewees was followed back to his home. Recent legal actions involving Scientology's relationship with its members have caused the organization to publish extensive legal documents that cover the rights granted to followers. It has become standard practice within the organization for members to sign lengthy legal contracts and waivers before engaging in Scientology services, a practice that contrasts greatly with almost every mainstream religious organization. In 2003, a series of media reports examined the legal contracts required by Scientology, which state, among other things, that followers deny any psychiatric care their doctors may prescribe to them. I do not believe in or subscribe to psychiatric labels for individuals. It is my strongly held religious belief that all mental problems are spiritual in nature and that there is no such thing as a mentally incompetent person. Only those suffering from spiritual upset of one kind or another, dramatized by an individual. I reject all psychiatric labels and intend for this contract to clearly memorialize my desire to be helped exclusively through religious spiritual means and not through any form of psychiatric treatment, specifically including involuntary commitment based on so-called lack of competence. Under no circumstances at any time do I wish to be denied my right to care from members of my religion to the exclusion of psychiatric care or psychiatric-directed care, regardless of what any psychiatrist, medical person, designated member of the state, or family member may assert supposedly on my behalf. Many people have stepped forward in the last several years to speak out about Scientology and its dangers to society and the members within the organization. I want to highlight several here just to show you how dangerous this cult or religion or organization truly is.
We documented in the piece, there comes the time where the light bulb moment happens for you and you realize, I'm attracted to another woman.
Right.
And I might be a lesbian.
Right.
And this, too, you say, did not go over well with the Church of Scientology, which you say in the book made very clear that L. Ron Hubbard was against homosexuality, that he thought homosexuals were criminals,
right,
and so on. Now, the Church denies that, too, I should say. They also say, just get this one out of the way, they say, contrary to your claims, your homosexuality was never an issue with the Church. They say Michelle was apparently involved in infidelity, i.e. cheating on her husband, and there's no requirement whatsoever that a divorce be blessed by the Church. The concept does not exist in Scientology. So what do you say was the pushback on you being gay?
Well, I'm holding back, not really laughing at that statement. All you have to do is just look at what L. Ron Hubbard says about gay people. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, he considers them the lowest of the low. He thinks that they should be taken out of society. He states it in Dianetics. He states it in the Chart of Human Evaluation. I tried to come out gay at 19. At 19 years old, I was not allowed to have any relations with women. After I was divorced, left my ex, I fell in love with a woman. And I knew that was right for me. I mean, it was the greatest thing I'd ever known.
Mm-hmm. But Michelle talks about how the Church allegedly forced her to go around to people who were strangers to her within the Church to offer her atonement for having lesbian thoughts.
Right.
I do not know what happened to my son, and that is where I stand today. I do not know what happened to my son. I do not know who pulled the trigger.
The tragic death of 20-year-old Carl Brennan is one of the most mysterious criminal cases in Clearwater, the city of Scientologists. Followers from all over the world visit Clearwater to progress further on the path of enlightenment of Scientology, the so-called bridge to total freedom.
I'm in my dining room crying and crying and crying, right? For 4 hours. I can't stop crying. And who am I going to talk to? I can't talk to my friends. I can't call them up and say, hey, I'm thinking of leaving the church. I can't talk to my husband. He was born in it. So I basically write to Andreas saying, Dear Andreas, I can't stop crying. I don't know what to do. And I know I've told you guys this, but there's new people that leave all the time, and they may be hearing this, and it's important that you get how how quickly this all went down. And then he said, "Dear Magoo, I'm crying reading your email. I'm so sorry that you're having to go through this. I just have to ask you this one question. What kind of friends could those be if they're going to leave you because you change your mind?" And that was it for me. It was like, oh my God, he's right. And it was like that cracked the Truman Show open for me. It was just like, they're only my friends as long as I'm jumping through their hoop, their way. And that's true to this day. If you're lurking and watching this and thinking all these people are your friends, they're not. They are only your friends as long as you're jumping through their hoops. And when I say there, I mean David Miscavige. And Miscavige, don't think you're winning on this, because you're not. People are leaving every single day. There's a new person from CMO who's going to be talking on Karen De La Care's site, Surviving Scientology, very soon, telling all kinds of stuff. Chris Shelton just left, who was helping run the complex. He's out. He's got all kinds of videos that he's speaking out. There's endless, Mike Rinder has a blog. He used to be the PR for the Church of Scientology. Marty Rathbun, who used to be Inspector General, has his whole thing. There's like tons and tons and tons of people that have left. There's CNU.net, there's xscientology.net. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There's so many. Plus, there's all the critics who are fantastic. Andreas is a critic. He was never in Scientology, but he had the wherewithal to look around, realize there was tons of stuff all over the internet, but nothing in one place. And that's why I made xenu.net. And thank you, Andreas.
I was put in a trash can, cold water poured over me, slapped.
I know it's wrong. It needs to get exposed, it needs to get confronted, and it needs to get handled. It can't go on.
The fight of her life, because she's going toe-to-toe with a church she says she still loves. One that was, she claims, her salvation. Cook was 14 when she found Scientology, a religion established in the 1950s by the science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard. Debbie Cook so firmly believed in Scientology that at age 17, she went to work full-time for the church, joining their religious order called Sea Org. She rose all the way up to the rank of captain at the church's so-called flag base in Clearwater, Florida.
Welcome to the Mecca of Scientology.
But in around 2005, Cook says she started to see high-level members of the church behave in ways she found deeply disturbing. It began, she told us, when she was asked to start working more closely with the leader of the church, David Miscavige.
One quality that has always set us apart is that we are unselfish. Yes, we have an utter monopoly on workable solutions, but we share those solutions with anyone who reaches for them.
Miscavige, who has led the church since L. Ron Hubbard's death in 1986, is famously close with the world's best-known Scientologist, Tom Cruise.
The most dedicated Scientologist I know.
I have never met a more competent, a more intelligent, a more tolerant, a more compassionate being. We are lucky to have you, and thank you very much.
But Debbie Cook has testified in court that she saw Miscavige punch a fellow Scientology executive.
You punched him in the face?
Yes. I've never seen anything like this before. Never.
And you had no inkling that it was even possible?
No, I never conceived of that. I mean, I've been in Scientology since I was 14 years old. I was on staff since I was 17. At that point, it had been more than 25 years being there. I'd never seen anything like that. It was asking me about various projects and was unhappy that things had not gotten done to his satisfaction. And then soon after that, the window was pried open. These two guys came through the window, and Mr. Miscavige asked me on the phone, "Are they there?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Goodbye." And then I was physically taken off with these two guys to the hole.
The hole. According to Cook's testimony, it was located here in a pair of double-wide trailers on the international base.
And when I was there, it had bars on the windows and security guards posted at the one door for entering and exiting.
What do you have to do in order to be sent to the hole?
You have to really
have caused what Mr. Miscavige considered to be, harm, or, you've really done enough bad that you're being sort of quarantined in the hole.
And when you're in there, can you leave?
No, you cannot.
What would happen if you tried to leave?
You can't. You just can't leave. There's guards at the door.
I get surrounded by 8 grown men, grown Sea Org members, 8 grown men in a circle around me, telling me I'm now going to the RPF. I can really relate to Scarlett's story, and this is something that to this day, I still have nightmares about this. And we're talking this, I was on the RPF in 1986. I still have nightmares because I felt I deserted my son. My son, who I had full legal custody of, was illegally taken from me and given to my ex-husband because he was a Sea Org member in good standing.
Sheila Huber was separated from her 5-year-old son for a year. She was sent to the RPF for having sex with someone she wasn't married to. She was unmarried at the time. At the age of 13, Scarlett Hannah was kicked out of the Cadet Org and sent to live with adults from the Sea Org in this home in inner Sydney.
Basically, I was living unsupervised from 9 in the morning to 12 at night to midnight. At the time I was going to a very rough school, probably one of the roughest schools in Sydney. I was being bullied and bashed, and so I just stopped attending school. My parents didn't know a thing about it at the time. I started hanging out in parks because I was so socially isolated, and this led me to being raped by a convicted murderer and running away.
Despite her experiences, Scarlett doesn't blame her parents.
I think they're part of the organisation, they were part of the machine. I think the church had some very toxic ways of managing its staff and their children, and I definitely blame the church as an organisation, not my parents at all.
Talk about the Scientology thing just for a minute.
Certainly.
All right. Now,
should I sit like this? Though I want to.
However you want to sit. It's a mysterious, Scientology. There's this kind of thing that nobody knows anything about it, and now you're not in that religion anymore.
Right.
And I guess the one question is, why did you choose to leave? If you can answer that.
Well, my mother got involved when we were very young, so it's all we really ever knew. But over time, my eyes opened, and I just could no longer be affiliated with the organization, and my family felt the same, so we left.
And is it now? And how are you? Because I hear it's different than leaving another religion. So are you okay? You can drink.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it was it's hard, and we have lost friends that can no longer talk to us who are still in the organization. But
now that is a thing. When you leave a church, they can't talk to you, or you can't talk to them, or something.
Correct. Wow. And these are friends that we've had for dozens of years. But I have great friends, other friends that are not in the church that have stood by us, and our family is stronger. We're together, and that's all I can ask for.
You have me. I'm your friend. We're your friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cults versus new religions is a matter of perspective, says Ori Taver, a senior lecturer in the Department of East Asian Languages and Civilizations, who teaches a class on new religious movements. New religious movement is a new term from academic discourse and is applied to religious movements from the 19th century onwards. Remember, says Taver, that the religious landscape of the US was about freedom of religion. Anyone can create a new religion and can appeal to the government for new religion status and get protections and recognition from the government. Upon doing my research for Scientology, I found an amazing article by the Irish Times that outlines why Scientology is a cult and worrisome to our society. They stated, "Is the Church of Scientology a dangerous cult? Absolutely. This is not a question of being intolerant of the beliefs of others. Rather, this is about recognizing a dangerous and manipulative organization for what it truly is. The Church of Scientology engages in suppression and harassment, not only of its critics, but also of its own members. One method by which the Church of Scientology controls and retains its members is the policy of disconnection. If a Scientologist is in contact with friends or family who are critical of Scientology, they can be ordered to disconnect, to completely sever contact with them. Scientologists are told those friends or family are suppressive persons or SPs, and that they must disconnect to avoid becoming a potential trouble source or PTS. By surrounding converts with other Scientologists and isolating them from those who have differing opinions from the church, they make it extremely difficult for people to break away. In addition, the mental and emotional abuse suffered by members of the church has been well documented both here and abroad. In 2003, Scientology's Mission of Dublin settled an 8-year court case taken by Irish woman Mary Johnson, who claimed she had been subjected to brainwashing and other mind control techniques. Once an organization subjects its members to brainwashing and other mind control techniques, I personally believe it has turned into a cult. No organization should ever brainwash its members in order to be a part of the belief system that organization holds. Not to mention, Scientology hits almost every point on Stephen Hassan's BITE model, which is the model we use in order to distinguish what organizations and religious groups are actually cults. I did an amazing video in my other series, The Manipulation of a Hunbot, where I go through the BITE model and discuss how multi-level marketing companies are cults, and Scientology also hits all the same points on the BITE model that MLM companies did. Therefore, I must draw the same conclusion that Scientology is a cult. The Irish Times also stated that many countries already recognize the dangers of the Church of Scientology. Greece has banned Scientology altogether. They cannot open an organization in Greece. Scientology is officially considered a cult in France. In Germany, Scientology is considered such a threat to democracy that a special commission, the Scientology Task Force of the Hamburg Interior Authority, has been formed to monitor it. Germany's concerns, though the Irish Times claims they are seemingly far-fetched, are based on clear evidence. Listen, Irish Times, I do not think that they are far-fetched. Need I remind you of this? Ban Scientology from our countries and make a special task force dedicated to ensuring they stay the fuck away from all of us. This is a dangerous cult, one that I do not want anyone in Hollywood promoting, especially to our youth, and one that I do not think should be practicing in our world. However, like most cults, all we can do is discuss them and spread education and awareness and discuss our personal experiences. There is an amazing channel I just had the pleasure of meeting one of the producers of, named Spike, and she is a really cool woman. I just adore her. She and her friend John run this amazing channel called John Atack Family and Friends, where they discuss Scientology and other amazing topics in relation to cult practices. Go give them a follow, and they will also teach you a lot about Scientology and their cult-like practices if you do want more information on this. In order to help us spread more awareness and education, please give this video a like and share it on your social media. Someone you know could be involved in a cult such as Scientology. As long as there is orthodoxy, there will be heterodoxy. and there will continue to be gospels of the end of days that could be rooted in science or scripture, people seeking answers, and leaders will emerge who claim to have them. Whether their followers are cult members or parishioners will largely be a matter of time. And I believe that Scientology's time is up. We need to discuss it for what it is, a dangerous cult. Be wary, stay safe, don't join a cult. I'll see you in the next episode of Pseudoscience and Cults.